Crystal.
Hi, John.
Oh. Hi.
Oh,
Hi,
Ed.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is an unexpected pleasure. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. That makes two of us that are surprised.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
how come you're surprised?
I didn't know this is where our breakfast was going to end up.
Oh, wait. Help me understand, Crystal. I know you and I had a session booked for today, and we had talked about you bringing Ed into your session with you, but you didn't tell him you were.
Well,
coming?
This is the thing, John. I've been talking to my husband about this because we met already the one time, and I'm gonna tell him the truth. I'm gonna tell him the truth.
Okay, before we get started, then I just need to do a quick check-in with that. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. So, Ed, now that you're here, I mean, I know that we've kind of chatted briefly a little bit as you had been here to, sort of drop Crystal off at her session, pick her up. We really said hello, but I need to just sort of clarify a few things with you that you're in Crystal's session. And I just kind of need to check in. You're okay with the limitations of therapy? You're familiar with how this works? Confidentiality.
I'm familiar. She tends to share some of what she talks about. I just, like I said, kind of feel a little bit sideswiped.
Okay.
By sort of being in the session versus the drop off and the hello. So
sure.
That's all.
So it's important then for me to ask: are you okay being here today? Are you okay participating?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. Like I said, just a little unprepared, but then
You're comfortable participating in a session about Crystal?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you ready and open to sort of hear some things she might have to say?
I don't have a choice. I don't think so. I'm just gonna
Well,
say.
you do,
I want to
so-
say. I want to say yes and just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Crystal, it must have been very important for you to bring Ed with you today. When did you decide that this was going to happen? And as always, Ed, I like to write things down so I don't forget. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Honestly, I think when we left the last session, I just thought it made sense for him to be a part of it because there's no, I love my husband.
Mm-hmm.
We've been together for so many years.
Mm-hmm. How long's it been now?
At least 15. 15. It'll be 15 this September.
Yeah.
And it's just, I miss him. And it's crazy. We live together. Every day he leaves at 6 o'clock in the morning. He's back home at 2. I come home because I'm a nurse. And I'm home by 3:30. It's just the same thing, but it's just like nothing. The kids left the house, as you know, and I'm struggling with that. And it's like nothing with my husband.
Well, Mariah's how old now? 18 and a half? Off at college? And Benjamin, where did Benjamin go? Because, you said he was thinking about moving in with his dad, but did he?
He did. I don't know if it was me. I don't know if it was Ed. But I just think after his sister left to college, he just felt like he wanted something different. Sometimes I think maybe he wanted to do it just because she left. Like, oh yes, I want to get out of here.
So Benjamin's at his dad's now?
Yeah, but we didn't leave. No one left in like a bad. There wasn't a fight, right?
No,
nothing like that.
No, Ben's always been independent. Ben's always been a good kid, and he's never treated me anything other than his stepdad, and dad. But he's always been more like Jerry. Jerry was a different kind of guy, and Ben is a bit more independent. That's fine. He knows he has a place to come, but he just wanted to move in.
So now you're at the point where it sounds to me like all of this. I know that when you met Crystal, the kids were young, and your romance blossomed, and there was a big sort of period of, more than a decade now, 15 years you said, of having this life together. And now that the kids are gone, it's just the two of you, and so now you're telling me you're having some adjustment?
Well, I feel like I am. I try to talk to my husband all the time, and he's just like, if I didn't love you, you would know. If I didn't care about you, you would know. And I'm telling him, I don't know, because I just feel like everything is like scripted. I can tell you what we're going to do tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I like my routine.
You like your routine?
I like my routine.
And I think now, especially where the kids aren't even in the house. I speak to them all the time, and we have a very good relationship. It's just, I don't know my husband anymore. I feel like he's not interested in me anymore. And he's like, if I'm not interested in you, you would know.
Mm-hmm.
We sleep together, we wake up together, we eat breakfast together.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like not like it's like what happened to it? We just.
Okay, so help me understand. Let's set a few guidelines. Let's try to keep our conversation focused on the two of you. All right, the kids are out of the house, so let's focus on the two of you, and let's hear from you, Crystal. Help me understand. I heard you say that every day is the same, and I heard you say you can tell me what you did tomorrow, what you're going to do tomorrow, and I hear you say you're missing that oomph, right? So help me understand, what does a typical day look like for Crystal and Ed?
Well, we wake up at 5:15 every morning. I make him his coffee. He tells me, good morning, honey. I make breakfast, pack up his lunch. He leaves to go to work. He every day for the last 15 years, he'll smack me on my bum right before he leaves. Says, I'll see you when I get home. I'll call you on my lunch break.
And does he call you on his lunch break?
Every day he does. Always same conversation. This is how it goes. It's a long day. Can't wait to get out of here. And the only thing that changes with that conversation is the time frame in terms of when he's retiring. So the countdown has begun 15 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And how close are you to retiring?
13 years.
13 years. So wow, you're preparing already, huh? 13 years.
Yeah.
All right.
I am.
So when we first started, it was 28 years. This is how the countdown we're down to like 13 more years to go. But I always listen to my husband. You know, I feel like I talk to him more. Sometimes I feel like he doesn't even want to talk to me. But the break ends quickly. He tells me if he enjoyed his lunch, or maybe what we can do for dinner, and then that's it. I come home, and if he gets home before me, which usually he does, you know, he'll start the lawn. Or he might do some laundry, but when we get home, he's in his quarters and I'm in mine.
In his quarters? What are his, help me understand,
Well,
where are his quarters in your
Well,
house?
if he's in the house, he'll usually stay in the shed, listening to some music. And I feel like if I try to go in there, like even like try to bring him a nice glass of wine or something, he's just like, it's like if I'm disrupting him. So I leave. And then I'm in the house alone. You know, not even my dog plays with me anymore. You know, she's doing her own thing. So I'm just like, okay, so I try to like switch things up in food-wise. Sometimes I give him spicy food just to hear him say something different because he can't stand it. But it's just like, oh, this is a little bit, I need something from my husband. It's just so dry sometimes, and flat. And then
Dry and flat.
after we eat dinner, you know, he'll watch some shows. Sometimes I sit next to him, but I really don't like the shows that he watches. But I don't say anything. Sometimes I say, do you want to watch a movie? I'm not watching none of that girly girl shit. And starts crying, you know, no crying music. So I'll just sit there with him and then I'll take a shower. Sometimes I think about dressing up. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes.
Well, do you ever?
I try to, but I don't know. He's not really in you know, into that type of thing. You know, it's even our sex life is very routine. So. But he's a great man, and I'm very much in love with my husband. I don't know how we got to be where we are. And some people tell me I should be happy. I mean, he's home every day. He's helped me raise the kids. They love him. We don't argue. Sometimes I wish we would.
Just for a little bit of
something.
Oomph, as you put it.
Yeah, and I don't know, honey. Sometimes I wonder if I'm happy or if I'm not, or if I'm just, like, am I fulfilled? I don't know. And where he has so many qualities of a good husband, I just feel like we're missing something.
That sounds like you got a lot off your mind right there, Crystal. Sounds like you've got a lot of worries going on.
And I think what worries me the most is the reason why I tricked my husband into coming here after getting him a nice steak breakfast was, I've said this before, and I think he just downplays the, if I love you, you'll know. If I hated you, you'll know. If I wasn't happy, you'll know. But that doesn't satisfy where I am, because I'm telling you what I feel, and nothing. And it's just same thing. It's like he doesn't try, or he doesn't think he needs to try because he doesn't think there's a problem. But I don't think that I need to be a woman to go outside of my home, because I'm not thinking like that. It's just, I just want us to be like 15 years ago. You know?
So, Crystal, I appreciate you sharing all of that with me. That's a lot of information. I'd like to take a few minutes, if that's okay with you, and talk to Ed. I'm going to ask him the same question, but I have some follow-up questions for you, and I'd be really curious to hear what you have to say, but I'm not going to ask you until after your husband talks, because I really think it's important that you hear what he has to say too. Okay? Yeah. Are you going to be okay with sitting and listening to what he has to say? Okay. Because I know that...
I need to.
Okay.
He doesn't speak. He's a very respectful man. I don't know what he really feels, you know, so I have to just... We have to take this head on, and I feel like, I'm sorry that I tricked you, honey, but this is the only way I feel like we're going to get a point across.
Yeah. All right, Ed, so I'm going to ask you the same question. You heard what Crystal had to say, and we can talk about maybe some differences of opinion you have of that, or we can talk about how that makes you feel. But I think it's important to hear, and for Crystal to hear, how you view your life together. What's a typical day for you two?
Pretty much the way she outlined it. Get up, she makes me breakfast or coffee, go off to work, handle my day. It's a stressful job. I manage a large number of people, so the whole day is spent deciding, managing, solving problems. Just the whole day is spent, every minute is spent just making decisions and managing a large group of people. And it's very stressful, and it's very exhausting. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. So quite frankly, when I'm out of there and I'm coming home, I want to just not have to think. I don't want to have to really expend a lot of energy at it, you know. And it saddens me to hear my wife say these things, and it's certainly never my intent to minimize my wife. I mean, I love my wife. I don't want that to be misunderstood. I do love my wife. And the fact that she had to drag me here under false pretenses tells me clearly there's an issue and that this is important to her. So I understand that. It's just I'm a little unprepared. And like I said, I come home and I guess I count on my routines. I mean, when I get up in the morning, there are things I can kind of count on as routine. I don't have to think about them. I get up and they work for me, and I can move through my day. When I'm at work, it's anything but routine. It is a constant battle of dealing with things that come up at the last minute. It doesn't have a nice pattern at work. Work doesn't follow that kind. It's a stressful job managing a large group of people, especially where there's travel and all that. And I just come home and I can count on the solace and the peace around what to me is predictable, and not realizing that predictability is perhaps monotonous to my life.
Well, it sounds to me like you have a very busy work life. You told me that you manage a lot of people, and we all know that we can't control people's behaviors. So you're probably putting out a lot of fires at work every day. Does that sound about right to you?
That's accurate.
Sounds to me that maybe your routine is a lot more comforting in your way of...
It's like having autopilot. I don't have to think about those things. I just follow the groove, and I don't have to expend any extra energy. It's tough. And when
That's
I come
how I
home,
feel our relationship is.
you know.
I'm sorry. I know it was his turn to speak.
No, were you? Can we say you were finished, or is there more you need to add?
You know, going into the shed is to tinker and do something, and certainly just to do things that need to get done around the house. And sometimes I need that space to just defrag from humanity. It's a lot when your day is spent with this humanity, and I don't mean to, again, put my wife aside. That's not my intent. And to be respectful, I try to keep my work at work, not come home and complain about the craziness of the entire day, because at lunch we have this routine of basically it is the same conversation every day. And I count on that as a reminder that I'm halfway through the day. I didn't realize it was so bad on my wife's end. So that's all I have to say.
Well, it's interesting because it's clear that you both love one another. You've expressed that very clearly. you've expressed that very clearly, that you love one another. And you both have expressed to me how much you love being with one another. How you wouldn't have made it 15 years and
Well, are you
still
in love with me?
counting.
Of course I'm in love with you. I was going to say I come home every day, but I'm afraid if I say that, you'll probably snap me. Of course I love you. I there's no one I would work harder for or go through all of what I go through because I know what we have. I just didn't realize I'm focusing my energy in all the wrong places, or
Well,
maybe not in the right place. I don't know. But yes, I do. Of course I do.
You know, guys, I think you two, I think it's a lot less complicated than it may feel like it is. I think what happens over time with some couples is couples tend, especially long-term couples like yourselves, tend to fall into a bit of predictable pattern. I mean, remember, your kids have just moved out. So now all of that, as couples have children and they build these lives, I mean, it's only natural for you to build your lives around your children, right? You spent a lot of time with your children making sure that they were getting off to school and they were being fed, and you spent a lot of time making sure you were working hard to provide for these children that you've taken in, so that they know that even though you're not their birth father per se, you were there for them as if you were, right?
I consider them my children.
Of course you do. Why wouldn't you?
And everything we ever did was for the kids, and it didn't occur to me that even though they're gone, my routine doesn't really change. My routine is pretty much the same, whereas my wife, who was at home for the kids, they're gone, so that big piece is gone.
You know,
and I didn't consider that. My routine is the same. It's unchanged by the kids being gone for the most part, during the week at least.
And now, would it be safe to say, Crystal, that because you're back to work as a nurse now, that the kids are, you know, as they've gotten older and they were out, that sort of reintroduction to a busy world helps you see some things you might want to change at home? Does that sound fair to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that, as I was starting to say, a lot of times with a lot of long-term couples tend to build up routines, right? When you get married,
We nailed that part.
You did. So when you first met, there was all of this wonderful unknown and fireworks and sparks and dates, and Crystal, you were arranging sitters so that you could spend all of this time with Ed, and Ed, you were being very accommodating to Crystal's schedule, and you were doing what you need to do to make sure that her needs were met because the kids were so young. And then you got married and you built this wonderful life together. You know, Crystal's told me that you have a beautiful home and that you have this wonderful time together. You know, you go on these lovely vacations. I hear you guys just got back from the Cape. So,
yes, it was the first time we had gone without the kids. It was a nice week.
So
it was a nice week.
You're able to spend this time together, but sometimes it can feel a little bit tough for couples who all of a sudden have all this extra time together to remember how to spend it together or to find purposeful ways to do that. It's hard to stop what you've done for growth and for success purposes and to better yourselves, to better your lives, to provide for your families, and get back to each other. That's often tough, but I really think we can work through that. Can we talk about that a little more?
Well, I want to explore that with you, but I just want to know, you know, I tricked my husband to coming here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and let's be honest, and I mean, I meet with you, you know, just to deal with just, you know, the changes with the kids and this, but like, I will do anything. I'm in love with my husband. I loved him from the minute I saw him.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure that he understands the work behind it, and I mean, I don't want to trick him to come see you. I want him to recognize we need to do it.
I think the fact that I tend to be very, I don't speak much.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes, but I'm going to interrupt you because I want to say this is my wife, and I don't know.
Okay.
I don't care about my wife. I am a creature of habit, and I don't speak a lot. But the fact that my wife had to trick me, it makes me feel sad that I've been so resistant to it. So I appreciate that, and I'm willing to try. I 15 years of a certain behavior, and just it's hard to change. I'm a little sad that you have to trick me, but I understand why. I do. I love you too.
So let me walk back the hands of time. You ready to go on a little trip? Let's walk back the hands of time.
I had hair.
You had hair.
I was 20 pounds lighter.
You were 20 pounds lighter.
We were both 20 pounds lighter.
We were both 20 pounds lighter and had hair. We were all younger and more free. Anyhow, enough about me. Let's wander back through 15 years, right? 15 plus, we'll say. How long did you two date before you got married?
It was at least a year and a half.
A year and a half?
Because when we first met, we had drinks. I remember she was in this. I remember the first date. I do remember these things.
So let's start then.
And
I'm going to start with you then, since you're going right where I was going to ask you to go. I would like you to talk about that first night, but what I want you to do is, while you're talking about it, I want you to look at your wife, and I want you to look at your wife today and imagine her as she was on the very first date, the very first time you laid eyes on her. Start with maybe how you met, who called who, did you pick her up for her first date? Take me all the way back through it.
I remember that your friend Cecile introduced us. She's was one of your coworkers at the hospital, and I remember her pushing us to go on a date, and she had described you and talked with the kids and all that, and she had said how you had this terrible times finding men because of the children, and you needed to have that be a priority. And I remember our first date, we went out for drinks. I remember you were in that the long black skirt with the pink top, and I just remembered we what was going to be probably just a quick drink turned into hours of us talking. And it must have been 2 o'clock when we closed the place, just talking. And we ended up walking around the park, and I remember you described your kids, and they sounded wonderful, but it was just the fact that you were so quirky and you were so different. You were so different. I could tell right away that you weren't going to take prisoners, and I knew after the first date what you were looking for someone serious, and that's what I wanted. I mean, and you didn't care that I was a little older than you. You didn't care. That seemed to be a plus for me. And I remember we talked about your kids. You wouldn't tell me their names though, but I guess I understood because again, they're your children, and it was a cool autumn night. I think it was October 17th. I think was our first date, because I remember waiting for you, and you came in, and it took me a while to find my table because I was like, oh my goodness, she's good. But it was a nice night. I think I may have had 1 too many beers because I was nervous.
You did great.
But I just remember just how fun it was and how powerful you were. And just that I could tell you weren't out looking for something. You were looking for something serious, which I was as well. And I think that we were inseparable after that. We were inseparable.
Crystal? Do the same thing.
I knew we were inseparable because when I saw you, it just took my breath away. I didn't feel alive for a long time because I just became a mom. And then I just was just that. I had a failed relationship, and I didn't know what it was to be a person besides a mom, right? And I looked at you, and once we talked after you drank the second beer, but I wasn't counting really counting, but just helped me to see how we were going to be able to grow. And I just envisioned our life forever together and just taking this journey, and it was worth. I think if you would have asked me to marry you that day, I would have said yes. And I know that was so crazy, but it was just, you made me feel a way that no one has ever made me feel. And in some ways, I almost felt like a purpose of being a person, not just a mom. And you were funny, and you are so cute, and I loved your glasses and your hair, and it's just your confidence. Your confidence was so, and it still is so strong. But you know what? You age like wine, and that's what makes me fall in love with you even more, and still stay attracted to you. So I remember that night. You were handsome from head to toe, like you are today.
So thank you both. That was wonderful. That was you had me smiling.
So cute.
I saw lots of smiles, heard some laughs like that. It was a beautiful thing. It really was a beautiful thing to watch. It's clear that you two love one another. It's clear that there's strong feelings there. So I'm going to very slowly, if you'll come with me, start walking forward the hands of time. Okay? We're going to add a few years. You've gotten married. The kids are getting a little older. They're in school. Ed, you've been promoted a couple of times, so now you've got some more responsibility. You're a supervisor, then you're a manager.
There were a lot of rocky roads along the way because at first the kids weren't sure who I was and how I fit. I remember Ben, "You're not my dad, you're not my dad." And it took a while, and I remember the one time I said, "I'm not your dad. I'll never be your biological dad, but I'll always be your father." And I know it was a little rough for us at first, especially after we got married, but
And how did you two overcome that?
as a team.
As a team?
As a team.
Mm-hmm.
As a team.
We always, I think, we never really had arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we had disagreements, especially with the kids, we never talked about it in front of the kids.
No.
So
No.
when we had an issue, we were always connected with each other first and talk to them the same way.
So tell me, you presented yourself as a united front, which is an awesome thing to do, especially with kids. But tell me how you two, because I have to imagine at that point there was some. It must have been a little more stressful. You must have been feeling a little more responsibility, maybe in the line of, "These are my kids. I have to make sure they're appropriate for."
No, I
help
feel
me
like
understand that.
I feel like that I never felt that way, to be honest with you, because me and my husband, we just work so well with each other. I think what wound up happening I did feel like a more sense of responsibility because they pushed him away so much. So he's tried. And I think with that, it's like I just kept on adding more to myself because I saw what it was doing to my husband too. Like he was trying to connect with them. "I'll take you to basketball. I'll do this."
So tell me then how you managed to work through that together. Let's focus on the ways that you two worked together. You talked about communicating together. What else did you do together to overcome that? Because you told me eventually it got better, right?
It did get better.
So how did you work through that together? What things did you do?
I remember one of the things we did was, when I was new to the household, and the kids were never, it wasn't like the kids were ever completely against me, but when it came up to major decisions or things I wanted to do, they always asked Mom, and they didn't ever ask me because, it was easy to ask Mom, and because she's their mom.
Sure.
And I was suddenly this guy in their lives, and I'm sure that I'm sure it felt forced upon them because
Sure.
they had a real dad who lived next town over and who really wasn't a bad guy.
Sure.
I think the other thing too is I was blessed because my husband was able to secure all these promotions, so I was able to stay home more. So I think they didn't realize they can ask me something, but when I was talking to my husband this lunch break, I'd be like, "Honey, this is what's going on." So we already had talked about what was going on.
So communication sounds like it was
It
a
was
big part
always
of you working
key,
through
yeah.
stuff together. Sure.
because they didn't know that we already touched base. So he already knew what was going on before they even came home, but they didn't even see that. So they probably just thought, "Oh, let me just talk to Mom. Let me talk to Mom."
But it sounds like you made it a priority to make Ed a part of the decision-making process when it came to your children, so that it didn't feel like.
But ultimately, Mom would deliver the decision. I think that was the way we sort of worked around it,
And that worked for you both?
It worked for a while. And the kids one day finally figured it out. They finally figured out Mom's on the phone with her husband, and they figured it out. And by the time they were in their teens, things started to shift a little bit. Because we never forced them to call me Dad. We never forced them to. I was always Ed. I was never Dad. I was Ed, and that's perfectly fine. And then one day Benjamin called me Dad, and he was probably
I know it made you feel so good when
13.
you did that.
I do remember having to go to the shed to do something.
Yeah.
You know, it's that's when things started to change.
So
And that was early on.
Mhm.
Early on.
that's wonderful that happened over time, and it shows me again that you two working together, you two relying on one another, brought about a positive result. So let's move the hands of time forward some more. Kids are now in late middle school, high school. Crystal, you're starting to go back to work a little more. You're picking up some per diem shifts because the kids are a little more self-sufficient. Ed, your job's getting a little crazier. You've got a lot of big projects coming up that you're really trying to prove that you can handle because you want to do right by your work and your family. Things maybe start to feel a little bit crazy around the house. You're having these phone calls. You're still doing things for one another. He's still smacking you on the bum. You're still bringing him coffee. You're still having these lunch conversations. And it's maybe starting to feel a little bit of a distance. Let's stop about 6 or 7 years ago. Help me understand what was going on then.
Well, you know, we had our daughter. She'd
have been about, what, 12 at the time?
Yeah, but you know, she was just getting into wrong friends.
Mm-hmm.
So there was times, remember, honey, when she was like running away.
She in those that was kind of ugly because again, you're not my real dad. You can't tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
That particular that put a wedge between us because at that point I felt very much entitled as her father because of the investment, and words were said, and certainly they were said in anger, you know, and I just started to realize, okay, then I guess there's nothing I can do about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's her problem to fix because she doesn't respect me as, and I just sort of distance myself. I can control work. I'm going to go to work.
Let me ask you a very important question, Ed. Do you believe that in that time you distanced yourself from the situation, or you distanced yourself from your wife?
The situation.
The
Because
situation?
there was nothing I could do made it better. It only made it worse. Only made it worse. It was only a reminder that I'm not her dad biologically, and that I can't control it. And it just was easier just to avoid the situation.
Did you notice that change right away, Crystal, or did that happen over time?
You know, I noticed it the minute she said that.
Mm.
The minute she said that, I remember looking at my son, and my son was like, his eyes opened up so wide because my husband looked so hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been a step parent, you know, so a part of me thought that this is what he needs, right? Because I don't know what it's like to be a step parent, but I know he doesn't realize that his separation, stepping back, was for him, and I get that. But it really did put a burner on us because then I felt like I couldn't talk to my husband about other things that were going on because he started separating himself not to get hurt. So I started separating it too, so he won't get hurt because he's like, why am I going to do this when they don't want me?
So you maybe felt, both of you, for the first time, that communication wasn't a priority?
I didn't even give it. I couldn't tell you it was priority. I just didn't want to do it.
You just didn't
It just
do
hurt.
it.
It's like putting your hand on a fire. Why? You know it's going to hurt. Why would you do that?
And I just made pretend like I would never talk to him about those things. Like, it wasn't, even if it was crazy in my mind and I felt like I was overwhelmed, I wouldn't talk. I knew it was too touchy. Like, I've never felt like I pushed my kids on my husband. And he's taken it so naturally, the role and the relationship, that it was the first time that he didn't know how to handle that, so he shut down. So I respected that.
So it sounds to me, if we walk those hands of time more and more forward back to present day, that there came a point where there was sort of those pieces of yourselves that you kept from one another, right? Where you didn't want to stress Ed out or upset him with things that were going on connected to the kids, and that you were leaving it up to Crystal because she, quote unquote, knew how to handle the situation. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
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 Does that sound fair to you, Crystal?
'Cause in those moments, I thought they're her children, and,
Yeah.
and it sounds cold to say, but they're her children.
Mhm.
And it did shift because the same way my husband would pat my butt when he would leave, he would always give them both a kiss on their cheek and or their forehead and always say, "I love you, have a good day," wherever they were going. And after my daughter made that comment, you know, he was still do some of those things. Like he didn't completely shift from our son. It's just then my son started with the same stuff, the same crap, and then it was I think where he connected a little bit more with Junior. And then Junior started, you know, as he became a teen, made that same comment. I feel like that killed my house, and he wasn't no longer their father in his eyes.
And we can talk about that more at a different time. I think that's an important piece of it too. But for right now, like we said earlier, I want to keep the focus on just you two. Because it sounds to me like you're sort of standing on either end of this precipice, this chasm between the two of you. And in between the two of you are the things that were never said, and all the time between the two of you that was lost, and all of the communication and togetherness that you didn't have. And what I'd like to try to do is help you build a bridge, because both of you are standing, the way that I see it in my brain, on either side of this chasm, arms reached out for one another, a bridge between the two of you, and neither one of you really knowing where to start or how to go. Sound about right?
I think that's a good assessment.
So here's what I want to do. Let's start off really, really simple. I'm going to bring it back to something we talked about earlier. You both described to me your first date, and you talked about how you met for drinks, it was,
Yeah.
and you had a little bit too much, you
Yes,
thought,
we
and she
did.
thought it was adorable.
We took a staggered walk at the park next door.
Do you feel the smiles on both your faces right there? Try as you may to hide it at, it was there. So what I want you to do, and bear with me because this might sound a little cheesy, even after 15 years of marriage and 16 and a half years of being together, I want you to go out on a first date. And here's what that means. It means that I want you to take every single step that you took to have a first date. Now I know you live in the same house, but that means I need somebody who's brave enough to take that very first step. Who asked who out the first time? Tell me.
It was really mutually arranged.
Okay.
Yeah,
It was mutually arranged.
But who called who? Because then in this case, I guess that makes me Cecile. I'm arranging this. So who called who originally?
She actually called me.
She called you.
She called me.
Well, that's what you and you said you liked that because
I
she
just
was
thought it was
forward,
very progressive and very much, you know.
All right.
I just found that.
So, Crystal, I think this fits in
Conventional.
well with you saying that you wanted to reach your husband. You wanted him to hear you and hear from you, right? So, I'm going to task it to you to call him up. Now, you're not going to tell him when you're going to do it, and you're not going to tell him how you're going to do it, but I want you to do it as if for the first time. I know that you have these conversations where your conversations are really routine and you talk about dinner and all of that, but something like, hey, hi, remember me, it's Crystal. We talked that other time. Our friend John talked to you about me. Do you remember? Do you see where I'm going with this? Go back to that very beginning, but I don't want you to tell him. Now when that comes in, it's going to be your job to go with it. And I know that you said that it goes against your routine, Ed, but it's going to be really important. So when you get that, hey, it's Crystal, that's not Crystal, your wife. That's Crystal, the woman that your friend John talked to you about. And you're curious about her. You want to meet her. So you're going to go with that. And the two of you are going to chat a little bit. Now, you don't have to say yes right away, nor do you have to ask right away. It's okay to, kind of text, flirt a little bit, put out some feelers right there. How's your day going? Oh, so John said that you are busy working. What's your schedule look like? Suggest maybe a drink. And is somebody going to pick somebody up? Are you going to meet there the first time?
Maybe we can do like the kids and take a Uber.
Whatever you want to do, however you see it fit. It's going to be important that the two of you plan it, but it's going to be most important that the two of you don't plan it as husband and wife. Because right now, Crystal and Ed are trying to make a connection, but I really want you to tap into Crystal from 16 years ago and Ed from 16 years ago. Not necessarily those people, but those feelings. Do you get where I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yes? So, talking to one another, asking questions to one another, and just spend a nice evening getting to know one another. Not talking about the kids, because the kids are with a babysitter because they're small, just like 16 years ago. Not talking about, oh shit, we have to pay the electric bill, because you didn't have an electric bill for your house 16 years ago. Focusing on one another, and only on one another, with the sole point of getting to know this interesting, forward, kind of, you know, making kind of a little fool of himself person in front of you that you used to know a long time ago. And then next time I see you, when we come back in a week, then we can talk about how it went. How does that sound to you?
I'm not opposed to it.
Are you both up for the challenge?
Yes. If it means...
Does it need to happen before?
It should happen before our next
When
next
are we
session.
seeing each other?
Well, let's see. Today is, let me check my calendar.
Let me check mine.
Today is Monday. You know what? I can fit you in next Thursday. That'll give you like a week and a half. Does that work for you?
I'm checking my schedule.
Check your schedule.
I'm gonna just move a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, next Thursday?
Yes.
So
Yes.
next Thursday, can we say 2 o'clock?
Would 3 be all right?
I do have a 3 o'clock. Is 3 o'clock?
Can we do 5 just because I get out of work at 4?
You get out of work
Okay.
at 4?
5 would actually...
You know what? I have a 7. How does 7 work
You
for
know
you?
what, honey? That's good. We should do 7. What do you
Okay,
think?
no, 7 would work.
Maybe we
Okay.
can go to dinner before.
So next Thursday at 7,
Right?
you can make dinner
So I
plans.
dragged you here before after breakfast. Now you're coming here willingly after dinner.
The key thing is that you're going to remember to set up that date. Okay? First date, dressing up, a little bit of perfume, nice clean close shave, all of those things that make it important. Okay? I'm going to want to hear about every detail of the experience as we go through.
Okay.
Does that sound fair to you?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Can we do one quick exercise? Because I know we only really have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah.
Okay? If there was one thing that, one of your favorite things about Ed that you've learned over the past 15 years of marriage and time before that, tell him what that is.
One thing about him,
One thing about him that you love.
that he's so tenacious.
Don't tell me, tell him.
I think you're just so tenacious, and I love that about you. You're just so driven, and even though you're a man of little words, but when you do say things, it's just so profound, and it just means everything to me.
And Ed, what do you have to say to Crystal?
I've always cherished my wife's ability to just be who she is and just the energy she gives off. And I feel sitting here overly guilty of not having paid much more attention to the stardust in my life. I'm dumbfounded a bit, and happy that she kind of kicked me in the butt to put me where I need to be, because I don't want to lose my wife. I've always loved my wife, and I didn't realize that my routine, which I thought was sufficient to prove that, isn't necessarily sufficient enough.
Thank you both for sharing today. Ed, thank you for coming today.
Oh, you're welcome, no problem.
Might be important for
I'm
you.
not tricking him next time. See you on Thursday.
Thank you for coming today, both of you. We'll see you on Thursday.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.